Have you ever wondered what the most reliable engine that Ford makes for every single vehicle? Well, in this video, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to tell you the hard facts, the data of exactly which engine you should consider if reliability is a big concern to you. Now, we've made some videos in the past that have went very viral where we interviewed some of our technicians about what engines they would choose if they were buying an F-150, for instance. But at the end of the day, that video is nothing but anecdotal opinions from technicians. It's not hard factual data. And I'm so excited to bring this video to you because we're actually breaking down that hard data that we have in our computer systems and telling you the facts. If you don't like these opinions, guess what? It's not my fault because it's not an opinion. It's an actual hard fact. By the way, if you didn't know, TC Customs is our custom division and our YouTube channel that you're watching right now. But Town & Country Ford is our sister company. We have two stores in Bessemer and Pearl City, Alabama. I took all of the service data that we had, we exported it into an Excel spreadsheet. We also did the same thing for the sales side of things, obviously leaving customer information completely out of the mix. But what we did is we took that information and crunched it and cross-referenced it together inside of artificial intelligence to actually tell us what is factually the most reliable engines. And let's start off with a vehicle that only really has one engine to choose, and that's the Ford Ranger. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mitchell, there's more than just one engine inside the Ranger. You have the 2.7 and the 3.0 EcoBoost found in the Raptor. Yes, I know that, but the problem is there's so few of those 2.7s and 3.0s running around. There's not enough information and not enough repairs to actually come up with a statistical chance of which one is more reliable or less reliable. And by the way, I'm kind of shocked at how close some of these engines were. Like the F-150 that you'll have to wait a little bit later in the video to see the details of what I mean. But the F-150 engines were so dadgum close, it kind of scared me, kind of spooked me, and I had to go back in and check the numbers quite a few different times. So I wanted to point out, back to the Ranger for a second, there are some situations where there's not enough data to actually compare those two. The Ranger happens to be one of them. Now I want to talk about the next vehicle, which is probably one of the biggest vehicles that made a big scene when it came out originally, and that is the Ford Maverick. Believe it or not, this vehicle is extremely reliable, but there is a difference between the 2.5 and the 2.0 EcoBoost. So the 2.5 liter hybrid engine is actually the more reliable engine compared to the 2.0 EcoBoost. That one actually shocked me. The logic tells you if you have a hybrid, you have more moving components, and you would think that that would have a better chance at actually braking. That's actually not the case. The hybrid is a more reliable engine. Although not by much, it is more reliable. Next up, let's talk about the big boy in the room, the Ford Super Duty. Now, this is going to cover everything from F-250s all the way up to F-550s, basically all of those vehicles that are considered a Super Duty pickup truck or a cabin chassis. Now, the most reliable engine, believe it or not, is actually an engine that is discontinued now, and that's going to be the 6.2 liter V8. Now, a big reason for that is it wasn't very powerful, and there was probably not a lot of stress on the engine. The next most reliable engine, believe it or not, is going to be the 7.3 liter nicknamed the Godzilla engine. Once again, it is a naturally aspirated engine. It's a gas burner, push rod type of a technology, and so it doesn't surprise me that it is almost exactly as reliable as the 6.2 liter was from the previous generation. So it's neat to see that these gas burners are very reliable. In a close third place is going to be the 6.8 liter V8. Once again, another gas burner. It's kind of crazy to me that all three of the gas burners are going to be the ones that are the most reliable. But the 6.7 liter is going to be next in line as far as reliability concerned. And that 6.7 liter, that's the Power Stroke, that's the diesel. And believe it or not, it's actually more reliable than the high output engine. Now, these high output and non-high output were so close, it probably, there's going to be some margin of error based into this data, and I think this one's close enough to call that. But the diesel and the high output diesel, believe it or not, is not as reliable as the gas burner. Once again, we're saying that it's not reliable, it's just not as reliable as those gas burner counterparts. Another vehicle that I can't compare the engines on is the Ford Expedition because they all have a 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6. Next up, let's talk a little bit more about commercial vehicles like the Ford Transit. This is that big van that Ford offers. There's two primary engines, a 3.5 liter V6 gas burner, and that is actually the most reliable engine. And in a very close second place is going to be a 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6, which is a twin turbo setup. So you're going to get more horsepower, but as you can expect, the extra horsepower and torque puts a little bit more stress on the engine, and therefore it's not as reliable as that 3.5 port fuel direct injection gas naturally aspirated V6. Ooh, this next one gonna piss some of y'all off. And that is the Ford Mustang. Believe it or not, whether you like it or not, the 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder is a much more reliable engine than the 5.0 V8. Now let me know down in the comments if you have a 5.0 V8, and I'd like to know what you think about its reliability, because anecdotally speaking, I feel like the 5.0 is a very, very reliable, solid engine. We had superchargers to these things all the time with TC Customs, and we never seemed to have very many issues out of them. But at the end of the day, it's really interesting because once again, the data doesn't lie. I want the 5.0 to be more reliable, and they both are reliable, but I'm kind of shocked that the EcoBoost with a turbo setup is actually more reliable. Next up, let's talk about the Ford Explorer. So the very first engine, the most reliable, is a 3.3 liter V6 engine that's found in your base models and your police interceptors. So that one's kind of crazy to me, but the next most reliable is going to be the 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder. These next two shocked me pretty severely because the next most reliable is actually the 3.3 liter hybrid engine Ford Explorer. And that is actually more reliable, allegedly speaking, based on the data, than the 3.0 EcoBoost V6 that is found in the STs and the Platinums. By the way, this is the same engine that's found in my Bronco Raptor, which I've had zero issues with. So it's kind of strange to me. Once again, the EcoBoost on the 3.0 on the STs and Platinums, it's not unreliable based on the data that I'm looking at, but it's just kind of crazy. It's not as reliable as those other engines. Next up, let's talk about the Ford Bronco Sport, a vehicle that Ford sells in quantities and masses. Now, the first engine that I want to talk about, the most reliable, is the 2.0 EcoBoost. This is the most reliable, and in a close second place, you've got the 1.5 EcoBoost engine. I guess it makes sense. The bigger the engine, the less stress is on things, and there you go, a more reliable engine, or at least that's what I'm assuming. Built on the exact same chassis, on the exact same assembly line, is the Ford Escape. And it's not going to shock you that the 2.0 EcoBoost engine is the same most reliable engine in the Escape as well. But there is a different engine that's available in this lineup, and that's the 2.5 liter hybrid engine. It's actually the second most reliable, and in a last place, the 1.5 EcoBoost, with the least reliable of those three Escape engines. This next one means a lot to me because I am a diehard Ford Bronco guy and have been since I turned 16 originally. My first vehicle was a 95 Ford Bronco, and I've had three of the new gen Broncos. I know I have a problem, leave me alone. But so the Ford Bronco, the big one, believe it or not, the 3.0 EcoBoost V6 found in the Raptor is the most reliable engine you can actually get in the Ford Bronco. To me, that one actually kind of shocked me, but also didn't, because once again, I have a Ford Bronco Raptor and I've not had any issues with it at all. And it's kind of neat that the data is backing this up as well, because we've sold a good number of these Bronco Raptors. But what really shocked me was the next most reliable engine you would assume is the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, but it's not. It's actually the 2.3 liter EcoBoost found in the 4-cylinder engine. Now, I do realize that the 2.7 in that third place ranking is a much more volume vehicle, so I wonder how that plays into the whole aggregate of all of this data, because think about it, if you don't have as many 2.3s going out the door as far as sales are concerned, you're not going to have as many repairs that might need to be done. But it's just really interesting to me that the 3.0, then the 2.3, then the 2.7 is the most reliable to the least reliable on the Ford Bronco. All right, the one you've probably all been waiting for, the Ford F-150. This vehicle, if it was its own company by itself, the F-150 would be a Fortune 500 company. Just think about that for a second. You have all of Ford, but if you just took F-150 sales, that's enough to be a Fortune 500 company. So this one absolutely means the world as far as reliability is concerned. The most reliable engine you can find in a Ford F-150 is the 3.3 liter V6 naturally aspirated. Who would have thunk it? Once again, my theory is naturally aspirated. It's not got boost. It's not under a whole lot of stress. Therefore, it's just kind of chilling, you know, and it just does its thing. But what is really crazy to me is that the next one actually solidifies some of these videos you've seen in the past of ours, where we talk about what engine would a technician pick. And you guessed it, the 5.0 liter V8 engine, nicknamed the Coyote, is the second most reliable engine that Ford makes for the F-150. That settles the debate. But what gets really interesting is the rest of the engine lineups, because as you probably know, the F-150 has got a whole lot of engine choices. And the next most reliable is actually the 2.7 liter V6 EcoBoost. I've been preaching this engine for a long time because I've had it in my Broncos. I've had it in my previous F-150 that I had quite a few years ago, and they're just good little engines. If you don't know, the 2.7 liter has got a CGI compacted graphite iron block, which is the same material that is made out of these Super Duty diesels. So the 6.7 liter, the block, that material that's really designed for a lot of boost, that's what they use on the 2.7 liter. And it seems to be very reliable because it's the next most reliable engine just after the 5.0 V8 engine. But what is the next most reliable engine? It's the 3.5 liter EcoBoost that you can find on every single F-150 V6. But what's interesting is there's two more 3.5 liters. You may not realize this, but there's three total 3.5 liters. You have the 3.5 EcoBoost that we just talked about, the 3.5 Power Boost hybrid engine, which is actually the next most reliable. And then after that is the high output engine that you can find in the Ford Raptor. And there's one last vehicle engine in the F-150 that we have not talked about. And I say engine with air quotes because it's technically not an engine at all. It's an electric motor. Believe it or not, the F-150 Lightning is the least reliable engine you can get in the Ford F-150. Now, albeit it's very close to the next EcoBoost high output from the Raptor, but it is, technically speaking, the least reliable engine you can get in that vehicle, which kind of shocks me because I had an F-150 Lightning for, oh gosh, was it a year, 2 years, something like that, 30,000 miles on it. Loved the vehicle. But at the end of the day, the data is the data. And if you don't like the data, that's okay. You're just known as wrong. But if you value videos like this and you value dealerships that actually will share with you the information, whether they like it or not, whether it hurts my feelings or not, there is no agenda. If you want to deal with a company that is actually transparent like this, you need to give us a call. The phone number is right there on the screen. And if you do that, you can order just about every vehicle that we sell at Invoice Pricing. There are a few exclusions like Raptor R's because we're sold out, and Raptors because you just can't get enough of those. But at the end of the day, if you want a transparent dealership and a transparent experience, give us a call. Thank you so much for watching this video and have a great day. Peace.